Welcome to More Than Golf. This is Jonathan Knowles. It's great to have you with me in Season 1, Episode 7. In this episode, Ajay Patel shares his mind-body teachings, defines what it means to practice mindful breathing, and will gift you his top 3 approach to develop your everyday breathing skills. Founder of Therastretch and mind-body specialist, I would like to introduce you to one of my best friends, Ajay Patel. All right, Ajay, thank you very much for taking your time to sit down with me and speak a little bit about breath coaching. Could you please tell the audience a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. Jonathan, thanks for having me. My name is Ajay Patel. I'm in the Dallas area, and I'm a yoga teacher, breath coach, and a stretch therapist. And we work with, as far as the breath coaching goes, we work with corporate clients and athletes who are seeking to find tools to aid in recovery, or just simply find a opportunity to take control of their nervous system throughout the day.
Excellent. When I explained to friends that I just started to do some sessions with you in breath coaching, they tend to come back with some interesting comments. Could you please explain a little bit about how you got into breath coaching?
Absolutely. So about a decade ago, I began to dive deeper into yoga and yoga teaching and yoga as a student. And there's a lot of emphasis on breathing. And it was quick that I realized that it was having such a large impact, both physically as I went through the actual yoga practice, but also as I incorporated just simple breathing exercises throughout the day. And at the same time, it was quite profound that this was having a positive mental effect on me. And it wasn't until a few years later that I decided to learn more about this breathing and learn more specifically on different types of practices and more about the how, given these different practices. There's an infinite number of practices, breath practices, and more so the why. In our yoga classes, we would do X breath practice or Y breath practice, but the yoga teacher, even myself, as I'm teaching a class, we would never really explain why we were doing a certain practice at any time. It was beneficial, but there was something missing there, and it was more about this why of what's going on. So since I have began to dive deeper and become a certified breath coach, and over the time have had an opportunity to teach a variety of clients, it's been interesting to see how very specific types of breath can affect individuals slightly different. So even with the breath, there's, just like anything else, there's still a subtle uniqueness for each individual.
That's excellent. So based on our practice sessions together, what I've acknowledged is that there's actually not one way to breathe correctly. Could you expand a little bit more on how we can use breathing to enhance our mindset or shift our mindset if necessary?
Absolutely. So first, if we're looking at say a performance-based breath work, before we can even consider going into something like that, we want to be conscious of our breath at rest and making sure that at a baseline is optimized as it can be. So, before we even get into all these numerous different types of breath works and why to do them in certain situations, there's just a handful of things that are quick and easy that can optimize your breath at rest. So first and foremost is this thing that we have, this breath is so powerful. We have it with us every day and every night, and it's happening automatic, just like your heart beats, just like your blood pressure runs, just like your digestion. The thing about this breath, which is also automatic, is we have the ability to take control of it. And as you take control of it, then you have profound impacts, specifically into the nervous system. And if you can control the nervous system through the breath, it has an opportunity to have impact in virtually every other system of the body. So just a couple simple tips for everyday optimization of breath. The first thing would be breathing through the nose versus the mouth. So our nose, our nasal cavity, our nostrils, when we breathe through our nose versus our mouth, before that air hits our lungs, it's being optimized up to 20-25%. Why is that? As it's going through our nose and our nasal cavity, that air is becoming pressurized and warmed and moistened and filtered, that by the time it does hit the lungs, it's becoming more accessible and available for absorption versus going through the mouth. So that would be the first thing, is creating some awareness of when you're breathing through the nose versus the mouth, and striving to breathe more through the nose. And that's through the day when we're awake, and even through the mouth. And there's different practices to help with both of those things. And then the second, for a quick and easy assessment and to optimize breath at rest, would be breathing through the belly versus the chest. So, simple practice is putting one hand on your belly, one hand on your chest, and just seeing which one rises. And ideally, you want the chest to rise little to none, and the belly to rise and fall with the inhales and exhales. Belly rises with the inhale, belly falls with the exhales. And when we do our testing for our clients, we have our clients do that practice both lying down, seated, and standing. And this is all at rest, before we even get into shifting the rates and ratios and changing or teaching breath work for performance, for example.
Very good. Now, for breathing at rest, is there a specific amount of breaths that you would recommend someone try to take while breathing at rest, or is that a non-factor initially?
No, absolutely. So generally speaking, humans, we are breathing too much breathing. So ideally, the breath should be slower than what on average humans are doing. So what we're seeking is about 6 to 10 breaths per minute, and we're averaging a little more than that. I mean, it's dependent on the individual, but a rough estimate is we're up in that 14 breaths per minute range, higher if you're having stress and anxiety. So, 6 breaths to 10 breaths per minute would be a good place to find that calm and most optimal breath. So from a rate and ratio standpoint, we're generally looking at about 5 seconds on an inhale, 5 seconds on an exhale. And if you do that, you're looking at close to about 6 breaths per minute.
So it sounds like there's going to be different breathing patterns based on different activities. A lot of people that listen to the podcast are golfers. Now, if they're, let's say, for example, about to play a tee shot, the first hole of a tournament or the first hole of a round of golf, typically the golfer is going to experience faster, shorter breaths. What would you recommend to someone having that experience?
Absolutely. So in our the way we train our students and our clients is we basically categorize our three types of breathing categories. So there's a morning practice, there's an evening practice, and then there's a middle ground, which is this calm alertness. So the morning practice is, creating some alertness and awakening, say before a strenuous exercise. The evening practice is going to be more of a drop you into a more restful state. And then there's this middle ground, this calm alertness. And initially, I would say for that golfer who's going up to that first tee, a little anxious, but needs to stay alert, they would want to find that and use that calm alertness. And a simple practice would just be a 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out, and just nice, smooth, and fluid. And just, about 10 rounds of that would allow that individual to, one, stabilize the breath. And as they turn into the breath physically, it's allowing this stillness mentally, this mindfulness. It's almost what I like to call forced mindfulness, as they're having to slow and balance the breath. Now, as that same golfer practices and learns more about how each type of breath work is specific to them, how it's causing their nervous system to react, then they can fine tune and hone whichever breath practice they need. But initially, it would be, two sides here. One is creating awareness of what and how they feel going up to that first hole, and on the other end would be which practices create what type of where does it put their nervous system state. But in a nutshell, just to say that golfer is a little anxious but needs to stay alert, I think this middle ground of just a simple 4 in, 4 out would be a good baseline to start with.
Very good. Very good. That's excellent information. Thank you very much, AJ. What would be the top 3 takeaways that you want your students to receive from your breath coaching?
Absolutely. So, the first would be the simple things which we discussed as far as at rest, breathing through the nose and belly breathing versus chest breathing. Those I would just you can just say categorize together, just creating this awareness of both through the day and at the night, how they're breathing. And before even shifting the breath, one would just create that awareness of where they're at and how they're doing those two things, through the nose and the belly breathing. And then from there, I would say, we can go and get into noticing how the nervous system is shifting throughout the day. What do you feel like when you're awake? We reach for things like coffee that bring us up to this sympathetic nervous system state to get us alert. What is your situation and how are you feeling? Can you use a little breath work to either aid, complement, or replace, such thing as coffee in the morning? And in the evening, the practice, what does this evening routine look like, and how do you incorporate these breath practices that allow you to dive into this parasympathetic nervous system state? And for that, in a nutshell, we would increase the hold times of the breath, both the inhale and the exhale, and then extend the exhale, so longer exhales, and that will allow your body to drop into a more restful parasympathetic nervous system state. So I would look at the bookends of the day as far as one of the main takeaways of what and when to do the breath practice. And then the third thing that I would say is, the morning and the evening, that's going to be a proactive approach. the third thing I would say is, how do you use the breath as a reactive? In your example with the golfer who's going up to the first tee and needs to create some calm alertness, they're being reactive. And just first is noticing these times of the day, whether it's golf or just everyday activities that, maybe they're a little stressed. The simple example is somebody driving, getting cut off on the road, and they're, ticked off for the moment, and maybe just a little breath work can reactively allow to return to a place of stillness and move on with, whatever is more important in the day. So I think those would be the main things. So one is, the breathing at rest, optimizing that, nose, belly breathing. The second is, being proactive and instilling simple practices in the morning, add it to your routine. In the evening, add that to your routine. Alertness in the morning, a more restful state in the evening. And the third would be being more reactive in the moments that you can use this tool that you have to bring that nervous system back to a balanced state.
Excellent. Very good. And just to add a little bit to that, why is it so important that we begin to become more mindful with the breathing practice?
So, mindfulness in a lot of ways has, depending on what circles you're in, has become a buzzword in meditation too, for that matter. But there's so much power in that. And with the breath, when we compare breath to meditation, there's a lot of the same and similar effects. But with the breath, it's so much more accessible. Why? Because we're already doing this thing that's breathing. You're just shifting it a little bit, versus meditation, which is fantastic and should be practiced. It's a further reach to learn about it and to practice it throughout the day. So with the breath, it's a form of mindfulness, and it's almost as if it's a forced mindfulness. For example, if I told you to hold your breath right now, you wouldn't be thinking about much else. You'd be thinking about, I'm holding my breath, and what is this sensation that's running through my body, and when should I take a breath? And as you're doing that, it's forced mindfulness. You've eliminated the thought patterns of anything else that could be. And as you do that, this idea of mindfulness is creating this mindset of presence and in this current state, and what that leads to is more focus. And the more you practice it, the even more and more focus you can create. And ultimately, it allows you to eliminate what I like to call the monkey mind, lessen that monkey mind of this scattered brain, and ultimately just allow you to, one, complete more tasks, and from a mindfulness state, complete those same tasks more efficiently.
Very good. Thank you very much, AJ, for taking your time to sit down and share with us what you get to share with your students on a daily basis. For the listeners that would like to have more information or reach out to you, how can they stay in contact with you?
Absolutely. So Instagram is @Therastretch, and on LinkedIn, you can find me as well, Ajay Patel, based out of Dallas.
Excellent. Thank you very much, AJ.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Please check back soon for the next episode.